up here a lot nowadays. And there's another. Just to mark your card before we start. The 6th of December, we're having the party. You're not invited, but everybody else is. It's to celebrate the great Ed McLachlan, but also it's a gallery party, and I want you all to turn up. So 6th of December, that'll be the next. Now, we're here. Welcome, everybody. This is the best one of the year. This is the one that we really love, the annual Illustrators. This is our... Will you please be quiet? In a bit of respect, please. Excuse me. House of fucking Commons. That's what it's told you. This is our 42nd annual Illustrators. Wow. No, don't applaud, I'll get embarrassed. I'm so pleased this year with it. I think the catalogue's wonderful. I think the show is wonderful. Before we start, this is Julia Langton, by the way. Before we start, I'm just going to involve you in a little bit of domestics. I'm so pleased this year because I've had hardly anything to do with it. The team has just run it. So I'm doing a little bit of sort of sucking up to them in case they make me redundant. And I'll start off by saying, Alexander, well done for masterminding it all. Pascal and Fiona, the design has been brilliant. They took alternate chapters and it's seamless, delightful, it's great design. Yeah. Alpa, well done on the photographs, spot on the colour, crisp, couldn't fault it. The two Phoebes have done all associated research to help Alexander put it all together, and Phoebe's hung it. Isn't it well done? Yeah. Thank you. Well done, the team. Now I'm taken by surprise by a huge, excuse me. I'm taken by surprise tonight by a huge number of our illustrators have turned up, illustrators and cartoonists. Now, without them, the gallery just looks like nothing. And I'm going to embarrass them because they're all very shy and retiring types like Peter Brooks, and I'm going to embarrass them. We have tonight Peter Brooks, who is undoubtedly the greatest political cartoonist in this country, no doubt, and probably in the world. But we had all the American cartoonists over, and they all wanted to meet Peter Brooks. Peter Brooks wanted to do all of it, so it was a perfect evening. Matt couldn't be here. I don't know what he's doing really, but Matt, he's already had his show, so he feels he's done his bit for the year. So he's not turned up tonight. So I may sack him. No, I won't sack him. I need the money. Peter Cross. Now Peter Cross is over there, and Peter Cross turned up tonight with this. Peter Cross is the only one of the living artists, so the rest of you can eat your heart out, that I call a genius. I don't use the word lightly. Peter Cross is a genius. Jonathan Cusick, the caricatures down there. Jonathan is very young compared to all the others, and he will become the best caricaturist in the country. Paul Cox has been with us since the 80s. Paul Cox is the genius who we sent on a pub crawl. He's typecast, that's the sort of thing he's very good at. But nobody does an architectural space full of figures and gives it such rhythm and colour and excitement than Paul. That is great illustrative artwork. Amanda Hall was in yesterday, but she doesn't like crowds. Actually, she doesn't like you lot, but she has produced these and they're brilliant. Then I suppose, Simon Drew's in Australia, that's an adequate excuse. And have I left anybody out?
Michael Foreman.
Oh, sorry. The biggest seller of all is Michael Foreman. Outsells everybody. If Quentin Blake was here, he'd outsell Quentin Blake. But he's had his hour in the sun. Last week we put on Poppy Field and we sold 30 out of 36. Did you know that? No, 25, I've got to pay him. It was partly for Farms for City Children, which is our favourite charity, and we raised over £5,000 for that. So well done you all for doing that. That was fantastic. Michael, thank you for being with us probably as long as Paul Cox. I'm sustained and delighted by all the gallery artists. Have I still left out one? Anybody? No? Got everybody. Good. And now on to the dead ones. No! Julia has kindly, I got on my knees and persuaded her, because she's very, very expensive, to do this for nothing. And we really go back a very, very long time. We've known each other for decades. I first met her when my dear chum Rob Buckman was writing a column for Punch, when Punch was really great. And also a very, very funny column. I actually told Rob that Julia was very much funnier than he was. And she used to write a column every week in Punch. And what was it called?
On the House.
What a really crap title.
I wouldn't have known if I hadn't looked it up.
Rob's was called Doc Brief, which has got a bit more flair. So, but I love that and I got to know her, and we've been very close friends ever since. She has become one of the leading political columnists, writers, and pundits on the social scene, and I suppose you brought your sense of humour easily to this burlesque of a political scene at the moment, and you're just perfect for it. She is also, you won't know this because they don't sign their articles. She's a well-known obituarist, and she told me, and she takes it very seriously. She told me earlier that she was very unhappy to be here because you all look so healthy. Julia, I'm thrilled that you're here because you go back to the great days of Punch. You were there for Alan Corrin all through those 10 wonderful years. So was Scully, so was Handelsman, so was
Roth. Arnold Roth.
Roth was here, quite right. He came over and he was a resident cartoonist for Punch all those years. Those were great days. And then it went to David Taylor, who had a few problems, and then it went to David Thomas, who started declining. And Julia says when it folded, it was really nothing to do with her. So tell us all about the world of humour according to Punch, and how are we doing in the politics at the moment? Lots of copy.
I'm going to start by getting back at Chris. He is, as you know, a polymath. Brilliant in every direction. Always had a few doubts about what sort of doctor he was. He told me a story once about how someone came to him with a really bad burn, and he sent them into the back of the surgery and said, just hold your hand under that tap. And then he went on and got on with the rest of the surgery. It was pretty busy. And broke for lunch. He went into the back of the surgery and said, oh my God, I forgot you were there.
2 hours.
Hypothermia.
Hypothermia. Can I go home now? Great results.
Thank you, Chris. Chris is a great man and a great friend. And if this is the 42nd Illustrators, we've been friends for more than 42 years, because what I thought brought us together was Ardizoni. My late husband was very keen on Ardizoni, and I thought I might be able to buy one. I was wrong, but it took me to Maida Vale and Dr. Beetles here, and we became firm friends, and it was absolutely lovely. So that must have been 50 years ago. It was before the gallery, anyway. And I was enchanted to be asked to come and speak here today, not least because I can't remember what I wrote yesterday, and I've almost completely forgotten that I ever wrote for Punch. I don't expect any of you even knew that, and if you go on the internet, you'll find it very hard to establish, because I put my name into Google and added Punch to it. You know what happened? David Langdon. David Langdon, who was a famous cartoonist, of course, and was always quite often on my page. He's all over the internet, but there's nothing about Langdon and Punch. I can't remember how I got the gig, or even when. I could only.
Or why?
Oh, he's trying to be funnier than me. Anyway, it was sometime in the 80s, and I started writing for Corrin. Chris said he was going to make some jokes about how Punch was never really very funny. And I think this is probably true, but it was really, I didn't work there, of course, but I went in there a lot because it was really funny to be there. It was a pretty male place. Alan David Taylor, Perry.
Folks, I forgot folks
Folks,
downstairs. Very male.
And we had the punch table, of course, on Fridays. I didn't get invited every week, but I got invited quite a lot. And they all used to roll in, Geoffrey Bernard and Keith Waterhouse. Keith Waterhouse taught me how to do the shoe trick. If this wasn't a gallery, the shoe trick, did anybody see Geoffrey Bernard is feeling unwell, or whatever it was called? Peter O'Toole did the shoe trick on stage every night for several years. And it involves, you set up a matchbox, biscuit tin lid, matchbox, glass, something on the top, then you smack it, and a raw egg, and the egg falls into the glass of water. Anyway, I could do it, and I would do it here, but I forgot to ask for the bits.
We actually have. Could you bring the egg up, please?
I could do it.
Sorry, no eggs.
Oh, yes, limited supply. So it was good fun to be there. Alan Corran was the most brilliant editor. He was so effervescent, lively. And I was thinking about it this morning. It reminded me of an old joke about Michael Heseltine, who was similarly very lively and full of fun and effervescent, and a dose of salts. Do you ever wake up in the morning feeling as if the bottom has dropped out of your world? Take Heseltine. You wake up in the morning feeling as if the world's dropped out of your bottom. Alan was a bit like that. He just made you feel better by walking into the room. David Taylor was his deputy, and he was only editor for a year. And then David Thomas took over, and it lasted till 1992. And then it went into that great abyss of forgotten newspapers and magazines, and it was all very, very sad. Alas, in 1996, and I wish to state here very firmly, I had absolutely nothing to do with this, but I did go to the party. Mohammed Fayed bought it. Remember that, 1996? And I was delighted in the catalogue today, which I went through with a tooth comb, because it's so good, Chris. It's a brilliant catalogue. Beautifully put together and really terrific. Page 188, I think. Oberon War, a caption to a photograph, a caption to a cartoon, and Oberon War wrote of, and it's all fired, was this the worst party ever? And
Was it that party?
it was that party, and it was the
Price is
closest,
going up.
it was the closest I ever got to Fired. And Michael Cole was whizzing round, combing his hair in advance. The magazine came back, but not for very long. So that is my involvement with Punch. I actually should have told you first that I think I got the gig maybe because I used to go on the news quiz with Alan Corran.
Yeah.
And
Nepotism.
and indeed with Stan McMurtry. But Stan, your cartoonist, Mac, yeah,
At the end there.
he used to be on the news quiz. The news quiz, ladies and gentlemen, back in the 1970s and 80s, was a quiz for journalists and cartoonists about what actually happened this week, not a showcase for comedians. I mean, it's very good these days, but it's different from what it was like then. And I never told Alan this, but I went on holiday once with a group of friends, and somebody made me early morning tea for a fortnight because I'd twice beaten Alan Corran on the news quiz. And Alan was the sort of guy who would like to have known that.
He wasn't competitive.
He wouldn't have liked that. I didn't tell him. So those were my days on Punch. It was, of course, a part-time. I have a day job. I found, to my astonishment this morning when I turned out my cuttings books, I found copy typed on a typewriter with all the corrections on it and crossings out and changing the word here and there. I don't know whether that didn't go in the magazine or what, but there it was. The more serious job is political commentating, and it's a laugh a minute. It hasn't been funnier since the days of Back to Basics, and boy, that was funny. Back to Basics was a very good time. I used to, at that point, one of my other part-time gigs was helping the Foreign Office tell Russian former Soviet Union journalists how to behave in a democracy. I used to report to Bush House, and initially everybody spoke English, which was, for a start, meant that they were all KGB. But even if they weren't, you knew who the KGB were because they were the ones with the gold teeth. So I used to report to an upper room of Bush House and lecture these people on how we proceed in a democracy, which included things like having lunch with politicians, not anything that anyone does these days, of course. Much too serious to have lunch. And when I took questions at the end, the first question was always the same. When do you have lunch with these politicians? Who pays? To which I would reply, we all do. That was a gig I took over from Alistair Campbell, who went on to other things too. He having succeeded me as political editor of the Daily Mirror at the time. So we all changed places. Now I am the lobby correspondent of The Tablet, a Catholic newspaper, although I'm afraid I'm a Church of England atheist, but they don't suit mine. I've been there for 15 years. The first 10 years I used to get vaguely religious references in, like, let's pray that the government gets its act together. I just put in a line like that in order to amuse myself. The Tablet sub-editors would nobody ever mentioned my jokes, but these days I don't bother. However, I have been a lobby correspondent for nearly 48 years, so I've seen them come and go, and I can tell you this lot are pretty dire. we have hopes of the restoration of some form of democracy soon, but let's hope that we all keep laughing.
Thank you. Let us all now pray that the evening continues in a similar fashion. And please remember that the box placed at the end of the church, marked for the sick, is for monetary contributions only. Thank you very much. The bar is open. Thank you for coming. Peter. Wonderful.